Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. It is Q&A Tuesday. Are you excited? I'm totally excited. I got so many questions for this Q&A Tuesday. I'm very excited. And let's go ahead and jump into it. But before I begin, I am a veteran medical coder. I've been a medical coder, an outpatient medical coder for over 10 years. I hope that the questions that I answer today will help you in some way. If not, you can always send more questions that I'll answer for the next week's Q&A Tuesday. And it could be anything about medical coding, anything about the field. Just let me know. And if this video helps you, I hope you'll share it at the end and hit that like button. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Number one, do many jobs ask you to vaccinate? Can you opt out? And what locations does this happen? Okay, when it comes to vaccinations, this is the healthcare field. I mean, this is almost not an option unless you have a severe allergy to whatever. This is not, many times in some facilities, they will not even hire you if you cannot vaccinate. It is that crucial. And it can be with remote coding companies. It could be with hospitals. It could be with doctor's offices. It does not matter. We work in the medical field. So even though we are, yes, not with patients, we do not have any contact with patients, there's going to be times when you are going to be asked to get a vaccination. So if vaccinations is something that you are sensitive about, this is something to consider before you get into the field, okay? And every individual place is different. So if some places will hire you without letting you have to have vaccinations, then okay, I don't know everywhere. I don't know everywhere that hires. I don't know everybody's rules. So just something to ask when you are applying, okay? But that is something to keep in mind, that you do have to have vaccinations, okay? The next one is, what are the shifts like? 8 to 5, 3 to 11. Guys, I don't know. I don't work everywhere. It's your average. It's like a regular job, you know? You have to ask wherever you're applying, wherever you're working, what the hours are. I mean, that's just all there is to it. I don't know. It is going to be different everywhere. So that's my answer on that one. How much are your trainings? Okay, I don't have official trainings, and I think I've been pretty clear about that. But for the people that are new, I do have a Patreon channel where I do talk about my own personal life, as well as I do a different little videos about like coding and things like that, just some tips to better your coding and things. I am going to get back up on the quizzes on Patreon. So that way, that can be a little bit more interactive on my Patreon page. Normally, I would be more engaged. I'm starting to get engaged again on Patreon. However, last month was like the beginning of Jumanji. So I do the best that I can. Keep in mind that I still work a full-time job, and I do this, and I answer questions and emails and things like that. So my time is just basically all this. So if you are asking, if you want to subscribe to my Patreon channel, I would really appreciate it. There's a lot that I'm doing with the funds from that. But if you want to, the pledges, I was going to say sponsorship, but the pledges start out at just $1 per month, and you get access to all that. As you go up in the different levels, I do offer one-on-one tutoring, and it's offered through Zoom. So that way it can be like very interactive, and that starts at the $25 a month level. Okay, it's 1 hour of tutoring. So, and plus all the other videos that you get during the month. So if you're interested in one-on-one tutoring with me, take a look at my Patreon page and see. If you do not want to subscribe to Patreon, I totally get it. But you can just email me and say, hey, I'd like to set up some tutoring time, and I'm totally fine with that. So just let me know, and we can go from there. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all that I do, plus my channel. But yeah, I don't have any, I'm not like an AAPC approved instructor or anything like that. That's not me. I'm not even associated with AAPC. I do talk about AAPC on my channel only because it's part of the two major powerhouses of medical coding. You got AHIMA on one side, which I'm a member of, and then you have AAPC on the other side. So I do talk about both of them to give you guys the ability to not have my bias. Okay, I let you guys decide for yourselves. And when you ask me, I will ask you to do your research and to make sure that you've gone to both websites and decide what you want to do. Please don't ask me which one I'm going to recommend, because as a HIMA member, I'm going to recommend them. But it's not right for everyone. Okay, there are some people that would be better with AAPC. There's different benefits to being with a HIMA, and there's different ones for being with AAPC. Both are well respected. So this is why I let you all have the decision on your own, okay? And that's pretty much all. That's the answer on that one. Okay, the next one is, oh, it was a statement. I did ask for clarification. She didn't get back to me, but I'm assuming this is what she meant. So she says, I'm a nurse and I wanted to do the backside of nursing just because I wanted to do something different. I asked her to clarify. She didn't clarify, but I'm assuming that she is thinking that medical coding is the backside of nursing, which is completely wrong. Okay, they are not even related. Okay, they are not related in any way, because the thing is, how do I put this? Okay, so nurses are a very important function with doctors. Coders, medical coders, are an important function with doctors on another side. Okay, so the doctor will instruct the nurse to do this or do that, and they take care of the patients that way. It's up to the medical coder, or a good medical coder, a high caliber medical coder who is worth their weight in salt, to partner with the provider, because the provider documents. It's on the medical coder to do the selection, to make sure that all the selection of the diagnoses and all the selection of the procedures are there. We don't take direction from the provider, where the provider may say, I want you to pick up this level, I want you to pick up this procedure, I want you to pick up this diagnosis. If the documentation is not there for those things that the provider wants, the provider is not going to get it. Period. Okay? Because we have a ethical duty to assign codes correctly, properly, and with any approved documentation. That's where we go. If the provider needs assistance, this is where we come in and we educate. And this is why I always talk about educating your providers, working with your providers one-on-one. Because the thing is, they need our help, because a lot of times providers are not given this training when they're in medical school. I've heard from many doctors that say that their training was very little while they were in medical school. And basically, they're just sort of, when they're doing their clinical rotations and things, they're learning from veterans in the field, yes, but it's not like that one-on-one time, because everything is accelerated, right? Because they got to get through school and they got to get through all of these things. So for me personally, every time I see a resident on rotation, I really try to get my hooks into them, because I want them to be trained right away from somebody who really loves the field. If providers come across medical coders that are not quite as engaged, it can scar them. I mean, I've literally seen the scars that have happened with providers. And yes, it may sound a little dramatic to put it that way, but when you've been in the industry long enough, you know. And a lot of times providers will not trust if they've had a bad experience with a medical coder. This is why I always try to be a good example of what an excellent medical coder should be, because this is what my providers, or any provider that I come across, okay, this is what they need to expect. They need to expect that a coder is going to go out of their way to help them, that they're going to review the documentation and they're going to look for those holes. They're going to look for where can they help them to make sure that there's more detail or appropriate detail, okay? That's the thing. That's the key right there. So again, we are not nurses. It's just completely separate. So if you're a nurse out there, I love nurses, and I love when they want to become medical coders, because a lot of times nurses are asked to do the clinical documentation improvement. They're asked to look for those holes, because as people who have worked with the doctor before, they know what the documentation says. They know what it the details of it. They understand more Whereas medical coders, most of us have our high school diploma or a GED, and we have our certifications. Yes, there are a lot that have gone to college and have their degrees and things like that, but nurses have an elevated level of education just like providers. So when that happens, you know, when you have a nurse that wants to be a medical coder, this is the good thing. It's just like doctors who get their certifications in medical coding because then they understand. So again, it is not the backside of nursing. It has nothing to do with nursing at all. We are our own entity. We are our own selves. Okay. So I hope that was clear. And I hope that will help you to understand that we have nothing to do with nursing. And it's not an elevation thing. It's not one is better than the other one. It's never that. Our functions are completely different. Okay, and understanding that is the key. Okay, so next question. I'm interested in learning medical coding because I am an introvert. But I really have no interest in the medical field, and I hate hospitals. What would you do in my situation? This is clearly not for you. This field is not for you. You don't have to want to be in the medical field so much as you need to really know that you are going to be dealing with the medical field. We may not be with patients. We may not be in the room, and we may not be covered in blood, okay? But what we do impacts the healthcare industry. If you don't like hospitals, if you don't like doctor's offices, if you don't like anything having to do with medical, then this is going to be a waste of your time. Medical coding is for people who like to study, who are engaging, who can be an introvert, that's fine, but it takes all types. So if you're an extrovert, it's totally okay. And a lot of people get the misconception that myself, that I'm very extroverted, and, you know, I am very much an introvert. I am a homebody. I'm very shy and things like that. But when it comes to things that I'm passionate about, which clearly I hope you all can see how passionate I am about medical coding, this is something I am passionate about. When I talk about it, this makes me very happy. When I'm able to help somebody, especially somebody who's new to the field, who is thinking about it and wants to know more, or a veteran who just needs somebody to talk to and ask questions to, that is like the best thing for me. I really, truly love that. And that totally makes my day whenever I hear that. And so that's what I look forward to. That's my passion in my day. And I get criticized for it, but I really don't care, because to me, if you have that, if you have a profession that you're passionate about, think about it. You're going to be doing this field for a good 20 or 30 years. You better be freaking happy with whatever you're doing. So to me, there's people who spend their entire careers miserable, and they hate what they do, and they can't stand going to work, and they don't like their job. This for me is not a job. This is a career. I love what I do. And they always say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I believe in that, because I feel like I'm there at that point. Okay. And I don't really care that I spend my whole day coding, and then I come here and I talk about coding questions, and I talk about medical coding. I really don't care, you know, because it makes me happy. So, but yes, that is my suggestion. If that's the case for you, then this is not for you. So, next question. Do you actually talk to your providers, or do you do a lot of queries? I've discussed this a little while back. With queries should be done on a very rare basis. If you are working very well with your providers, if you're giving them the training that they need, if you are working with them like you should be, then your amount of queries should be very little, okay? And for somebody to say, well, the provider doesn't have time for you, or you don't have time for those providers, you need to do all your work, you need to make time. There's no excuse. Because you know what happens when point A is not talking to point B? They don't know what's going on, right? And now I've learned this. I have learned this the hard way. Okay, a few years ago, if you're new to my channel, okay, if you guys you know the story, I had been confronted with the fact that I did have a provider who said that he never got any feedback from me, and he would like to get more feedback, and he just wants some communication with his coder. Well, of course, I was offended because I said, like, seriously, I do communicate, but it wasn't to the level that he wanted. So it wasn't until after that time when I started to really dive in and really start to get into it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, now when I'm sitting here talking to him and he's saying that he does all this stuff in his visit, and I'm like, okay, well, I didn't notice that in the documentation. Well, it's common sense. No, it's not common sense, So think about it. If you don't really know what they're doing and you're just in this room, or you don't make those ways of getting in contact with them, you're never going to know what's truly going on. Okay. And don't let anybody scare you into, no, you need to do your work. Trust me. It's a little bit of time, but that little bit of time that's invested in getting to know them and talking to them and finding out what exactly they're doing is going to go a long way. Because believe it or not, I've found providers who think that they were doing one thing, and it turns out they were doing something completely different. So in order to get all of that straight, you got to talk to each other. Okay. So to me, when I find these things out, it's a complete turnaround. And I have rescued clinics before because of this, because all it took was one person saying hello. That's it. Okay. Now, you may run into some providers who are a little gruff with you at first. It's okay. You just got to smile and keep going with it. And then sometimes you're pleasantly surprised. There's going to be some providers who are very welcoming to you. They're very happy that you're there. So it's all going to depend. It's all going to depend on you. But you have to be willing to say hello. Because that provider, I guarantee you, is not going to be the first one to say hello. You have to do it. Okay. Next question. Have you ever had an encounter that you had to code that was emotional or sad? Or have you ever had an encounter that made you laugh? So I have had emotional encounters. I am a sensitive person. But I did have one. And I mean, when you start to read the detail of different records, you sometimes have to remove yourself from getting emotionally involved in the encounter. If the provider documents quite well and they're very detailed, you can get sucked into what's happening in the encounter. I did actually have one that made me cry, and it was a pediatric encounter, and the child had died, and they had done a lot of detail in the record, and I literally had to stop, and I couldn't after that. And so I was just like, I need to stop for the day. And I literally stopped for the day after that because there was so much detail in that. It doesn't happen often, so don't get scared. But this happened to be just a situation that was very caught everybody off guard. And so just reading it did take an emotional toll. Some clinics are a little bit harder than others. You will have sometimes, if you're working in the oncology clinic, oncology can be very difficult. Peds can be very difficult. The ER can be very difficult. I've had to code many traumas that came into the ER, and some of those things I would never ever want to read again. And you get car accidents, and you get all kinds of things. You get domestic violence. There's a lot of different things in there that you'll see a lot of interesting things. And but when you see these things, and these things are emotionally taxing, it does give you a little bit of, okay, I want to do my part to take care of this person. I want to make sure that all of their diagnoses are picked up properly. I'm going to make sure that they are taken care of. That's what I can do. And that's sort of how I get myself out of those very sensitive ones. I have had some funny ones. I have had some scary ones where a provider would get yelled at, and they did have to call security, and it was all documented. And I've had to see that, and it's frightening. You know, some of that stuff is quite frightening, and some of it is funny. Especially when sometimes patients will flirt with some providers, and some will be quite aggressive about it. So that isn't funny when they're more aggressive, but when they are, you know, just flirty, it's funny when to see it documented. So that's you know, pretty much what I can say about that. But you know, it's just many years of seeing many different things, and I have seen people do things to themselves. Let's just say the external cause codes get used quite a bit, like even in the ER. And you see some very interesting things, and where things are in just different areas or where they shouldn't be. And yeah. This is why I say it does not get boring, okay? You really get to see a whole lot of stuff. So yeah, but it has its days. It has its days. It has its where you can see the providers engaging passion in the record as well. When you see them, how they do things for their patient, as far as like calling places or getting consults and things like that, and you really have a respect, and you see that, and it grows every time. I have quite a few providers that when I first started working with them, I thought, oh, this guy's okay, you know, he's just a regular doctor. And then as I read their documentation, I can see the passion in the things that they do and how they care for their patients. And it just makes me so proud to be able to work with them or have worked with them. So yeah. All right, next one. I'm almost out of time. That's why I'm trying to look. Okay, I get stacks of denials daily from insurance companies. I need a mentor to discuss these topics daily. Again, I have my Patreon channel. You can go through my videos and see if there's anything that will be helpful for you. If you're getting stacks of denials, you really need to understand why. You need to go over those insurance company rules, and you need to see why they're denying that particular encounter. If they're denying a particular encounter for a procedure or a diagnosis or something, then you really need to look at the documentation, make sure the documentation is there, and make sure that you are correctly coding what it is. I have seen coders try to throw on all kinds of modifiers just to try to get it through the insurance company, and that's wrong. If the documentation is not there or it is not clear, you can't be trying to throw on modifiers just to try to get it through the system. Don't do that, because what ends up happening is you end up having an audit from the insurance company, and if the insurance company says, well, we overpaid you, you owe us. And if it's a mistake, it's a mistake. But they start looking for things like if you are intentionally doing it, that's a lot of trouble. If you are intentionally doing something, and ignorance is not an excuse. If your provider is telling you you will report this and the documentation is not there, I'm not going to go into this again, but I'm telling you guys, if it's not there, it didn't happen, and you do not pick it up. You work with that provider to get them to understand why this needs to be there. Because other than that, you're putting your own self at risk if you are picking up the wrong codes just because you're being told. No, you have a brain and you have a mind. You can be able to figure the stuff out on your own too. Make sure that it is correct, okay? Because that's your name going on those codes. And you have to be able to explain why you selected those codes. I'm just saying. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. But this was a very interesting discussion today. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about what makes medical coding awesome. I've give you guys what I love about it, but I'm going to give it to you all in one video. So I hope you'll join me tomorrow at 7:30 Central Time. And I will see y'all in a little while, because I am going to upload this so that we can have a premiere. All right, so if you're a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on my journey in medical coding. I will see y'all next time. Bye.